Does success have a different definition for you than fulfillment? Like, are those different things to you, or do you relate to them as the same?
Well, it's interesting. I was given a card one time, and this is a memory that I have that said, success is when you get what you want, and happiness is when you want what you get. And if you think about that, I just, it really resonated for me when I got it. I was probably in my late 20s when I got that card. It was from a friend. And I really thought about that. And I just think that was a really gracious, interesting, thought-provoking way of saying, you know what, be grateful, be thankful for what you've got. Don't take things for granted, and don't take relationships for granted, but just be thankful.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Inner Compass podcast. I'm host Andy Petronic, and I've got a really cool, interesting, one of the things I love about this podcast is the variety of people that I get to talk to. And my intention in starting this podcast was to open up a channel of communication for people who are not necessarily thought of as like the famous people that are up to big things. These are people who are up to big things, but they're not necessarily like, they don't have big, huge Instagram followings, and they're not influencers, but these are the heart and soul of what make America great and what make our communities great. And they have insights and, secrets that have gotten them to where they are. My guest today is Shane Foley. He is a wealth advisor at Capstone Partners. I'm going to read off my bio here, where he works with entrepreneurs, executives, and families navigating some of the most important financial decisions of their lives. Much of Shane's work happens at pivotal moments: when a business owner is preparing for a liquidity event, when a family is thinking about how wealth will shape the next generation, or when someone wants their financial life to better reflect the values they care about most. His role is often less about managing investments and more about helping people step back, see the bigger picture, and make thoughtful long-term decisions. Before entering the financial world, Shane was the starting quarterback. We'll talk about that at USC, an experience that shaped the way he approaches leadership, pressure, and teamwork. Today, he brings that same mindset to working with clients and their advisory teams as they think about stewardship, legacy, and the future they're building. What makes Shane especially interesting for this conversation is his vantage point. He spends his career sitting with successful people as they wrestle with not just what they can do with their wealth, but what they want their lives and legacies to represent. Shane, welcome to the podcast. Just a note to everybody out there listening, this is our second time at this. we got halfway in the last episode and the internet just went bonkers, and we couldn't finish it. So I really appreciate your patience and that you're willing to come back and do it again.
Absolutely, Andy. Thanks for having me, and pleasure to be here. That was a mouthful with my intro, so thanks for kind of dealing with that. But happy to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Cool. Well, a great place to start, because people don't know you and they just know you from what I said. If you were meeting somebody for the first time at, say, a business mixer or something, and you wanted to give them a quick snapshot of what you're up to today, what would you tell them? What do you do?
Wow. Well, it kind of depends on the circle that I'm in, but no, right. I certainly, take a lot of pride in being able to help people be in better positions financially, not to be corny, but to be their financial quarterback, right? I'm able to help people navigate different areas of their lives, whether it's running a business and looking at succession of that business, where that goes. I can meet a business owner where they're at in their lives, and then the individuals and families that I'm able to help. There's a lot of things that you talked about, but stewardship, legacy planning, how they think about raising their children, things of that nature. Are they charitably inclined? But helping them make big decisions around those things and being thoughtful about it. It isn't just, as you said earlier, managing investments, managing money directionally, but it's also helping people, carve out the path that they want to be remembered for, and to help them be thoughtful around a lot of those things, whether it's a business owner, an individual, or a family.
What, you've had a lot of years of doing this. What is an event or a time, something that you did for someone that you're really, really proud of? maybe most proud of?
Well, I mean, I think that we deal with families in many different situations. And so there's difficult times when we may act in a capacity, as a third party or a corporate trustee, helping somebody that's dealing with a challenging passing of a family member, and
Mhm.
helping people navigate kind of through those times. Right. That I've seen some, obviously, as you alluded to earlier, I've been doing this a long time, and it's something that we don't think of, but certainly if if somebody's not buttoned up when an untimely event happens like that, it can really put a lot of stress on a family. So I think there's been scenarios where we've been able to really kind of come in and help families take a step back and really work through some really challenging times. um, I think that, even though I'm not a tax advisor, I work closely with CPAs, and I think there's business owners that might be more proactive, some more than others. And I think that, from the scenario of helping them be mindful about strategies around saving tax, right? And that's something where we worked with business owners that might have worked their whole lives, to create this liquidity event. Then they have it, and then they find that they're giving half of it away, or nearly half of it, in the state of California, to Uncle Sam, and that can be a frustrating experience. So we try to be, I think, proactive from that standpoint, right? If we can do things ahead of schedule, it's always best. But reactively, we've created situations for being mindful about how much they're able to keep, not just what they made. So I
Is there
think
is
there.
there anything specific that you can remember? I mean, I know you're not gonna speak anybody's names or specific situation, but is there anything you remember that you're like, "Wow, this is why I do this. This is like this is incredibly satisfying, like, for the impact you had on someone's life."
Well, I think that I mean, trying to go back to one event, I think there's one that was recent, right? I mean, we had two business owners was working with this business for a long time, put a buy sell in place for the two partners at one time, took them through the process of that cycle. They ended up selling to a key person in the business, and one of the partners was already a client. The other one had another advisor that he worked with, although we did the buy sell for them and put some of those pieces in place, ran their 401k for the company. But I think when they came to sell, they sold to a key person in the business. And this is fresh in my mind because we just did this at the end of last year. But my one client was his now former CPA, basically just told him to put like 45% of what his income was on this earnout that they had over 10 years aside to pay tax. And so I asked my client, I said, well, how does that make you feel? And he said, well, Shane, not very good. We obviously worked hard to create this event, and, basically just telling me to take the tax on it. And so I think from that standpoint, I asked him if they'd be open to meeting with another CPA. We did that. And then we put a couple vehicles in place, put together a solo K for the business owners. They own the real estate of the business that they'd worked in, and with that, we put together a pension plan, a defined benefit plan that we're putting in place that's allowing them to put a lot of that money aside and defer tax on. Now they're a little bit older, so we have to talk about Roth conversion and things of that nature later. But it's a scenario where we're able to help them put meaningful dollars aside, and that's rewarding in a sense where
Yeah.
they where I had clients that needed help, and so got them to a new tax advisor that was a little bit more proactive with how they work, and then kind of helping give my clients some relief. So that's something that we just dealt with,
That's really cool.
literally in the last 4 or 5 months.
What I mean, I can already hear the energy in your voice, so I get that this is that aspect of your job is exciting for you. What excites you most about what you do right now? I mean, is it the interaction with clients? Is it building a team around you of advisors that work for you? Like what's most exciting part of aspect of what you do?
I would say probably the most exciting is really being able to help successful people and people that might be building their wealth or may have all their wealth in their company, their business. They haven't realized a liquidity event yet. But I think a lot of it is, there's assumptions made sometimes that really successful people um, financially, whether they're, doctors, attorneys, engineers, business owners, entrepreneurs. A lot of those people that do really well may not have the time or the interest to really be involved in being good stewards of their wealth and creating it, and what do they do with it? How best do they navigate that? So I think probably the most rewarding part is just the different types of people that I'm able to meet, my team is able to meet with, and being able to kind of help problem solve in certain situations. And people out there might say, well, gosh, those, having liquidity events, and what do I do with it? And how do I avoid tax? Those are good problems to have. I understand,
Yeah.
but it's still is meaningful, and obviously raising kids in this environment, that's a whole nother situation. I've got kids that are turning 15 in the spring and 14 in the spring, this coming up. And that's a whole nother situation to kind of help navigate your kids, right? With how quickly people access information, technology, all the things that we know about. But anyway, those are some of the things. And I having played a team sport and having been a quarterback in college, working within a team, certainly, I think there's scenarios, family office types of environments where having more than one advisor as part of the solution can also be advantageous and positive for the client to have that brought to the table as well. So I think that's a big part of what's exciting for me, Andy.
Well, thank you for bringing football in, because that was going to be my next question to change gears, and you just did it perfectly for me. So thank you
Oh
for
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, no problem.
Um, I want to take you back to, maybe when you were 14 or 15 years old, or maybe even younger, when
Sure.
from our conversation before, you were a three-sport athlete,
Yeah.
and you had to make a decision to then play football. What were you chasing?
Well, I think first and foremost, I just had a passion for sports. I loved sports. Grew
Uh-huh.
up in a sports family. Kind of taking you back a little bit, not too far back, but my dad. Well, first of all, my grandfather had been a football player at St. Mary's back in the 40s, when St. Mary's had been a big time program and played the likes of USC and big schools. But so he kind of set the tone. My father went to San Jose State and played football on a scholarship, and then transferred down to USC and ended up winning the light heavyweight Golden Gloves boxing in the Olympic Auditorium back in the day. And then
I ain't
his
messing with your dad. I ain't messing with your dad.
no,
Jeez.
no, no, he was no, yeah, he was unfortunately he's not with us anymore, but he was he was a stud, no doubt about it. And
Wow.
he was one of three brothers. He was the oldest, but his youngest brother, my uncle Steve, played football for Stanford. And so when you ask me kind of what my thoughts were, he was really a role model for me. We were only 10 years apart. And so he grew up more like an older brother to me and somebody I looked up to. And so that was something I think at a pretty early age was something that I knew that I wanted to do, was to, to play, certainly beyond high school and in college, and go as far as I could with it. But that was a big part of it. Was I loved it. My dad in my formative years was also a coach and a teacher before he transitioned into real estate later. But anyway, those were some of the influences, and kind of the vision that I had was, I just felt like I was going to be able to uh, have fun, but do some things in sports and athletics that that might take me to a higher level.
So I'm curious, did it all just work for you? Because when I hear you talking about your grandfather and your dad, and then your uncle,
Yeah.
and like it's like in your blood. Like how do you even? It's like the Mannings. Like, is there anybody in the Manning family that can't play quarterback at an NFL, starting quarterback level? Jeez, Louise.
I know. Well,
But
that's a different level, right? I
yeah,
mean, to play at the
yeah.
level Hall of
But
Fame level that those guys are. But
Yeah, but
yeah,
I
I think
I I hear that in your story, and so it could occur to me that this is just easy. I mean, not easy. I'm not implying that you just waltz your way into being the quarterback at USC, but like, was there doubt? Was there uncertainty? Did you have to struggle through things like getting cut or not achieving the high levels that somehow prompted you into, you know, resilience and et cetera?
yeah, I mean, well, I think any athlete, I mean, for the most part, right? I mean, you take a look at, Michael Jordan got cut from his as a
Yeah, right.
sophomore basketball team, right? So
Right, right.
everybody's got that story. I think that playing quarterback is a very competitive position. The best athlete.
Are you saying that you got cut as a sophomore from your sophomore team?
No, I didn't, but I was alluding to having adversity and having to
Yeah.
deal with it along the way. Right. So
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, I mean, for me, I love the game. I was passionate about it. I practiced a lot. I had a lot of self-drive. I think that I'd been raised with that kind of became part of my mindset. Right. I mean, I think that was something that was a big deal to me early, but yeah, I think that, we moved a little bit. I lived in LA, and then my mom and stepdad at the time moved out to the desert when I was going into junior high. And that kind of was an uprooted situation. And then I ended up living with my grandparents for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade down in Newport Beach, went to Newport Harbor and played for a coach there who became like a second father to me, Mike Giddings, who had coached at USC under John McKay, and then he was the head coach at the University of Utah, NFL coach at with the 49ers, linebacker coach there. And so, had this huge background of work and just loved coaching. And I happened to come along and went to Newport Harbor when he was a coach at Newport Harbor for like 4 or 5 years and played for him. And so I was fortuitous from that standpoint. But, you asked about adversity. I think that, I was recruited heavily, coming out of high school and went directly to USC. Was recruited, by a number of Pac-10 and it was Pac-10 at the time, Big Ten schools.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I mean, but when I came in with another scholarship athlete out of Santa Monica. They signed to us. It was in the same year, and then Rodney Peete, who had blown his Achilles tendon in the bowl game that they had, and then the previous December. He came back from that, and as some of the people on here may know, he finished second in the Heisman to Barry Sanders later, and so he healed up just fine. And then a guy named Todd Marinovich that some people may know, he came in 2 years after me. He was less than a year younger. He had been held back and reclassed. But so I was dealing with a lot of competition and a lot of that taking place at SC at the time. And so I think from that standpoint, there were peaks and valleys and highs and lows that I could walk you through. I don't know if that's interesting, but
I'm curious, that sounds really difficult, if you're used to achieving, you said you had the passing record for your high school, right? Been high school in Newport Beach
for Orange County. When I got out of school, I was the career passing yardage leader coming out of high school in the mid.
You come into college with that, and you're recruited, and you go into this situation, and you've got the guy that basically could have won the Heisman Trophy, and then then 2 years later, you've got Todd Marinovich coming in. How did you keep yourself from F this, I can't, how do you, somebody's going to come in and undercut me if I do well.
Well, I think that, my thought is, Andy, I mean, when I came in with another guy, Pat O'Hara. We were both scholarship athletes. Rodney Peete came back from that injury and had a great, great couple of years, because he was there for a couple of years. I was 2 years behind him. And so what I would say is I had gone from being in the spring, Rodney was playing baseball. This was obviously after he was healed. And Pat and I were kind of battling back and forth. And I had a really good spring game. At the end of the game, had a really great spring game and had kind of beaten him out, kind of going into the fall. The next year, it didn't really matter because Rodney took probably 98% of the snaps. So it was kind of inconsequential. But then the next year, Todd Marinovich had come in. And so the things that took place at that time, and this is kind of where I dealt with adversity, Todd and Pat had kind of ascended into being, I kind of became the third wheel. And so what happened was at the end of that spring, Andy, I was on the same team when they divided up teams as Todd, as the other quarterback. So there were two quarterbacks, and Pat O'Hara was on the other side. And in that scenario, where I had gotten kind of player of the game the spring before, fast forward a year, and I basically got 10 reps at the end of the scrimmage. It became clear to me that I was the odd man out kind of looking in. And I think from that standpoint, I was really dejected in that spring season. It was my redshirt sophomore year. It was my third year at SC, and I realized that I was going to have to either transfer or do my best to get in the mix and really compete and be the guy that I wanted to be. And so I made a decision that summer, Andy, to get in the best shape of my life. I looked in the mirror and I said, look, um, you either have to, you got to get in the best shape of your life and come in ready to go. And if things don't work out for you as a quarterback at USC or beyond, then it wasn't because I wasn't prepared and didn't do everything that I could. And so I had that epiphany or that realization at that time where that's what I needed to do. And so I did. And I conducted my own two-a-days and I really got in great shape and really the best shape of my life. And so when you come in the fall, I was going into my junior year that year. And they test everybody, every athlete. So whether you're a lineman, a receiver, throughout all the positions, quarterbacks included, everybody tested out from where they were conditioning wise in the spring compared to where they come in the fall. And they give the kind of the best conditioned athlete to one guy. And I actually got it with like 100 guys on the team. I was the best conditioned athlete there coming in. And that particular year, we had a really good defense. Guys like Junior Seau, played with me. He came in the year after me, but there were about 7 or 8 guys on that defense that ended up going to the NFL and playing for a period of time. Dan Owens and Tim Ryan and Junior Seau and Mark Carrier, was the number 6 overall in the first round. Great defense. And so what happened is that as we got into competition, they had Todd and Pat kind of running with the 1s. I was running with the 2s, but I liked it because I was getting more reps against this great defense. And so when they had the end of the first week, like a live scrimmage, I was going against this vaunted defense and fortunately put together a really good day. And I think we scored 3 or 4 touchdowns against the first defense. The other guys, were performing against the second offense, and they had decent days. I don't think anything went wrong. But anyway, they asked Larry Smith, the head coach at the time, they just said, hey, what are your thoughts on Foley? He looks like he's really come to play and compete. And his comments were something along the lines of, hey, if everybody had come in as prepared as Shane did this summer, like this fall camp, we'd be a lot further along. And, if the other guys don't step it up, Shane is in competition to be able to play. And so I know that's a sidebar and it took us down the path a little bit.
It's not, Shane, it's not at all a sidebar. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's really important because my follow-up question is going to be, how did you use that experience going forward in your life? How did it change you? And how did it influence you in later aspects of your life that are not related to football?
Yeah. I mean, I think that a situation like that is I think for me as a father, being able to kind of instill some of those thoughts and qualities to my boys, talking about that and adversity and how you deal with it and having that work ethic and that attitude, right? I mean, controlling what you can, letting go of what you can't. You control your attitude and your effort, right? And those are things that I've talked to my sons a lot. And obviously it transitions to your career as well, right? When you're getting your business off the ground and you're building relationships. I mean, people already have relationships, right? So you're going to go out over there and kind of bring your value proposition to the table and do that. And you don't win every case or every opportunity or every client. But I think that's a big part of what life's about, is making our best days ahead of us, not behind us, not spending a lot of time worrying about things that we can't control and being prepared. I think that I think one of the things that situation taught me inherently is to be prepared and be ready to go. So when that opportunity arises, that you're ready for that moment. That's a big part of it. And football gave that to me. I had great opportunities. I think I told you offline. I mean, I never considered myself a backup quarterback, even though
I'm glad you're bringing this up. I was going to ask you this question.
Yeah, I started a handful of games, but I threw the first touchdown pass against Ohio State. Marinovich got hurt, and I came in and threw a touchdown pass against the Buckeyes. I started several games the next year in 1990, and there were things that were taking place. I mean, you want to talk about adversity. I mean, I had started against Arizona State kind of middle of my senior year. We had come off a loss to Washington earlier in the year, and then a loss at home to Arizona, which was Larry Smith, our head coach's former school. And so we had come off of 3 straight Pac-10 championships and 3 straight Rose Bowls, and the power was kind of shifting. Washington, for those couple of years in the early 90s under Don James, had become the power, and we had gotten beat twice. And so we were in a must-win game going out to Arizona State, and that was a game I started. And so story behind that is, Todd Murnovich was kind of having some challenges with the coach. He decided that he wasn't able to practice. Smith benched him, and went out there as an ABC game, and got player of the game on ABC. We had a hard fought game win against Arizona State, and then the next week, Larry Smith started not announcing who the starter was going to be. So we're playing Cal at home, and the day of the game, Murnovich had come late to the last meeting before we got on the police escort buses to go to the Coliseum. Came late to the meeting, and Ray Dorr, the quarterback coach, said, "Hey, you ready to start today?" So started that game against Cal. We get the ball and go down 80 plus yards and score a touchdown after the week before getting player of the game, and they benched me, and I got benched. And the Coliseum was booing and kind of going crazy. And this was a long time ago, but I still can talk about it like it happened last week, because it did shape me, right? I mean, it did. It is who I am. And so, I think there were things and we ended up tying that game to Cal 31-31. And it was a really bad game for us. And Todd had a couple of interceptions, but the thing is there were a lot of things taking place that were out of my control. And it would have been easy for me to just say, you know what, hey, it's, I mean, this isn't what I signed up for, and any of that kind of stuff. But again, putting the team first, being ready to play, thinking to myself and preparing myself as a starter, that's really, I think a big part of life, right? Right. I mean, being ready to go and making the most of the opportunity when you've got it. I mean, that's really what it taught me. And there's a lot more to all the story, but I don't think we need to dive too deep into it. I think people have a good idea. I mean, I think that, it would have been easy for me to say this, have sour grapes, but I serve on 2 boards now at USC. I'm still actively involved. I've got a lot of great, my best friends are Trojans, and a lot of my clients are USC people. So that's,
right.
I think I try to take the positive from it and move on.
Is there a moment that occurred and whether it's in football or anything, where you look back on and you think, wow, things could have really gone differently here? Like this, I could have made a different decision, or for the better or for the worse. Like I, something worked out or something didn't work out.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of them, right, Andy? I mean, obviously,
but your life, not me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that, I made a decision to come to USC. I don't regret it for a minute. I got 2 degrees from there, serve on a couple of boards. I mean, obviously, if I had been writing the script, I would have liked to have had had a full season to be the guy to see where I could have taken that and what I could have done. I don't know, that comes from, it doesn't come from a bad or good decision. It's the decision that I made. And,
well, it's interesting though, right? Like when you think about that, you could think that if only I could have been the starting quarterback all the way through my 4 years and see where that would have gone, but you would cease to be the man you are today. And, the father you are today, and the ability to handle the adversity the way you did, and to teach those lessons to your kids authentically. Like if it had just gone smoothly for 4 years, you wouldn't have had that. And, I wonder if you're a better man. Better is the wrong word, because you're just a different man, like who knows if better or worse, but you're different than you would have been otherwise.
Well, I agree with that. And I think that, look, I think that everything that's happened in our lives and things that have taken place make us who we are in this moment, in this minute, and who we are right
Yeah.
today. And so I don't live life with regret. I don't have any regrets as to the direction I've chosen. I'm married to my best friend. I've got two awesome boys, and just having a great experience with that. But yeah, I think all those things. Um, I think like with my younger son, he was in a passing league tournament the other day down in J Sarah, down in South Orange County.
We
And
yeah, my son played soccer at Loyola, and we lost to J Sarah twice in the
okay,
CIF sectionals and then the CIF regionals. We were in the finals against
oh
them
yeah,
both times, and they beat us both
oh
times.
man, tough,
It's
tough. So
awful.
you know that feeling from that standpoint. But the
Yeah.
point I was going to make is, he had it was a passing league deal, and he just didn't look like himself. Had a rough day. Threw a
Yeah.
few interceptions, which isn't him. I mean, he's a very talented up and coming quarterback. And I think that the things is that I had experienced. You get in the car and we got a long drive back. We live in La Cañada, and so driving back from South Orange County, J Sarah, and you kind of learn just to not talk in the car until he talks, right?
All
As
right.
hard as it is, because you want to talk, but I think that I'm able to kind of talk, or was able to talk in that scenario about all the tough days that I had had as a quarterback and all the mistakes that I had made, and kind of dealing with adversity. And I remember one spring game where Murnovich, I think, had gotten hurt and Rodney had graduated. And so it was kind of Todd and I, from going into my senior year, had an awesome spring, 3-4 weeks of football. And then the last day, I just, I pressed. I was trying to do too much, and I ended up probably throwing four, a lot of interceptions. And it wasn't like me to do that, but I was able to kind of share that with my son in that moment, that like, hey, it happens to all of us. It happened to your dad, but it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it, how you react, how you respond, and getting back on your horse, right? I mean, that's a big thing, to be able to do. And so, I know that he carried that with him that day. I mean, it was a really tough day for him, but he's back and had a practice. He's playing for a team, a Loyola feeder team right now, because my older son goes to Loyola.
Uh-huh.
And so he was just slinging it last night and looked more like himself, and
Cool.
just you get back on track. So, but was
Right.
able to kind of share some of those things with my boys, which I'm thankful for.
How well, okay, there are a couple things. You mentioned you're married to your best friend. Are you guys like high school sweethearts, college sweethearts? Like, did you know each other a long time before you got married? Like,
We
what
knew
was
each other a long time before we got married. It was one of
yeah.
those. I got married later in life. My father-in-law, who I knew before my wife, introduced us, and so met my wife through my father-in-law,
Oh,
and
wow. Wow. Wait,
we knew
your
each
father-in-law
other.
introduced you to his
He
daughter? You
did,
must
yeah.
really
He's
like
a
him.
USC guy. I was a Sigma Chi, or I'm a Sigma Chi, and
Yeah.
so and he's a very involved. He's a significant Sigma Chi, and so that was certainly a big part of his life.
Yep.
But with that being said, I had a friendship with him, and a respect for him, and met his firstborn child, and my
Right.
wife is
Right.
Farrell, and we actually knew each other 11 years, Andy, before we got married. So,
Wow.
um,
Shane, what took
we
you so long?
man, I
Jeez.
think I like to say that I played football a couple times without my helmet on, and
That's right. You got a good
I got
excuse
knocked
to
a little
share it.
senseless. But no,
Yeah.
we both, I mean, it was one of those things. We both were in other relationships when we met. We became fast friends. Created this friendship, and we just got to know each other, and we're really, really close. But it's kind of a when Harry met Sally story, really.
Mm,
It was kind of one of those situations, and I think realized after obviously a long period of time that this person's right in front of me for a reason, right? And
mhm.
that it was time to kind of hang up the cleats and roll off into the sunset. And so, yeah, we've been married for 16 years. We just celebrated 16 years. We were in Milan, Italy, and
Congrats.
went to a few of the Olympic events over there
Okay.
for our anniversary. And we've got two boys that are turning 15 and 14 this spring, so we didn't waste a lot of time getting our family going. So, anyways, but very thankful where I'm at in life, Andy. Yeah.
Did you know, did you know that you wanted to have kids right away? Like, was that a decision that you guys made early on, that you were, like, looking forward to creating family together?
Yeah, I mean, most certainly. I think we both, irrespective of each other, I think she thought she came from a big family. I came from divorced parents and married young. So I got a blended family, with a younger sister and brother, and then an older brother and sister who had been my stepdad's kids in a previous marriage. So I kind of grew up in more of a situation like that. But I think Andy, I think we both thought we were going to have a lot of kids. And when I say a lot, probably 4 would have been that number if we had started earlier, and if it
Mhm.
was maybe 5 years instead of 11, maybe
Yeah.
we would have had a shot. But I think that's just I think that's something that you realize how much time and energy and attention that a child needs, right? And so when we had 2, and we're obviously a little bit, I'm 6 years older than my wife, and so I think that was the realization where we realized that our the kids that we had needed us, and that we were probably good at 2. My wife did ask me one time, by the way, after having 2 boys, if I was content with just having 2 boys and if I needed a girl, and I told her no, I was absolutely content and thankful and happy. But I said if she was open to having more, that I would be ready to go back to the well. And she just said, "Well, honey, listen, I've given you an heir and a spare, and so the kitchen's closed." So
That's
that
nice.
was
Yes.
that was how it went. But yeah, so that's some about my personal life.
What as you look at your life now and maybe reflect, you're a little older, a little wiser, you've lived multiple lives, you could say, and
Yeah.
multiple scenarios in your life. What how has your definition of success changed, or has it? Or how would you define it today? Like, what does having lived, quote unquote, successful life mean to you?
Well, I think that for me, not to be depressing, but the guys that I played with at USC, kind of going back to that time, and I bring this up for a reason. I've probably lost over 20 guys that I played with,
Mm,
from the late 80s, early 90s, and so maybe more like 25 now. It's a crazy number. And so I say that because the relationships, right? Success is about having great relationships in life.
hmm.
Obviously there's financial success, and there's doing well financially, and we're blessed to live the life that we do. Um, but I think that, a big part of it is the relationships that we maintain, that we create and build over time. I think that that's really the relationship we have with our kids, with our families. I think that's a big measuring stick for me, is having those relationships out there that we create.
Does success have a different definition for you than fulfillment? Like are those different things to you, or are they do you relate to them as the same?
Well, it's interesting. I was given a card one time, and this is a memory that I have, that said, success is when you get what you want, and happiness is when you want what you get.
Yeah,
And if
that's
you think
beautiful.
about that, I just, it really resonated for me when I got it. I was probably in my 20s, late 20s, when I got that card. It was from a friend. And I really thought about that. And I just think that was a really gracious, interesting, thought provoking way of saying, you know what? Be grateful, be thankful for what you've got. Don't take things for granted, and don't take relationships for granted, but just be thankful. It doesn't mean that you don't, hey, don't, it doesn't mean don't strive and don't work hard and
Right.
don't have drive and that kind of thing, but be in a position. I've lost my mom and dad before I turned 50. I lost both my parents. And so, I think having lost friends, having lost my family, I think that making time, taking time, making memories, doing those types of things are really, really important to not lose sight of, and not take for granted.
Do you have a practice now that helps you stay stay at your edge? Like, do you have a method in the morning that you use to wake up, or something you do midday, or workouts or meditation, or stuff that you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. Andy, I work out every day. So I mean, at least 6, if not 7 days a week, I work out. I'm an early riser, usually up between 4 to 5:30, 5:15, AM.
Do you
Um,
set an alarm to get up?
no, well, sometimes I do because I've got Loyola drop off early and that kind of thing. But
All
I
right.
find 99% of the time I don't use it. I actually whisper to Alexa to turn off because my wife is still asleep next to me.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I don't typically utilize an alarm. I get up early. I work out. Um,
Does
I
your workout is your workout cardio? Are you doing strength? You doing all the weightlifting? Like, what do you do?
I do cardio. I think that's something that I do definitely do. I typically ride the bike. I've got an elliptical, so I have a little home gym, and we're also members at the Jonathan Club, and
Mhm.
so have access to that. If I'm dropping off early at Loyola, I can do that. I did that a lot in the fall with freshman football.
Right.
Um, but I think that a lot of it, the home gym, we've got an incline bike, we've got an elliptical, I've got a heavy bag in there, I've got a treadmill. Um, it's not a big space, huge space, but it's got everything that you need. And then I've got dumbbells in there and a flat bench and a pull up bar. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I can get a really, I think, maybe an executive workout, but it's pretty good, right? I can get what I need, but that's typically how I start my day. Kind of and I shared with you offline earlier, we have a lot of animals. We have the animal kingdom in
Yeah.
our house. So I'm the one, on that program with feeding the animals, getting my workout in, showering up, getting my kids to
Collecting
school.
collecting the eggs from the chickens? Is that your job?
We do have chickens. Yes. Yeah, I'm not really the big egg collector. I think, my wife and we have a nanny, we get some help doing the collecting, but,
Yeah.
no, but the feeding of the animals and doing all that, every morning, I'll say this is a full sprint, but,
Yeah, right, right.
I do try to take some time to pray. I do pray and have faith. And I do, try to get quiet sometimes. I think that's something that we all deal with, kind of what I described, having all the animals on our property, having 2 teenagers,
Yeah.
that are pretty independent, right? They do their thing, but the phones and the email and anyway, all the things that we all deal with, it's important to have a little quiet time and get centered.
Do you have any sort of a mental centering practice that you do other than praying? Like, is there an aspect of, like, gathering yourself, or something else you do that is, part of that,
Yeah.
preparing for your day?
I mean, not formally. I mean, I think that breath and breathing is something that we take for granted. So I think
Mhm.
if you can kind of get intentional around some of that, where you're, taking some deep breaths and getting centered and getting focused, I think that getting to a point where you aren't as reactive, when you're in a
Yeah,
good place
yeah.
and when you're pulled in a lot of directions. And as I said, my days are a pretty pretty action packed full sprints in the mornings. I think if you can take some time to get centered, but I think the breath and the breathing, that could be somewhat meditational, that I'm doing, and sometimes that can kind of be in conjunction with the prayer work, that I'm
Yeah,
doing as well. So that can kind of be tied in,
yeah.
but yeah, I think that I think just getting quiet and even if you can do that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, where you're not being distracted and can kind of focus in and get centered, that's a really big deal.
Well, on that topic, because, we live in a very chaotic world. Well, I don't know if it's chaotic, but it's very action packed.
Yes.
Everybody lives in an action packed world today. What helps you stay grounded? Like, do your relationships, does your orientation to life, do your kids, like, what helps you stay in the present and not get too wound up in the drama of life?
Hitting my heavy bag.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I just think that, I think that, the working out helps a lot, because physically you're getting a release physically, doing the working out and doing that type of thing that we, that I do.
Uh-huh.
I think that's a big part of it. And then just, remembering um, that being in a position to think of others, right? I mean, I know that, the mantra at Loyola is being a man for others. But I mean, I
Mhm.
think that is something that it's easy to say what's in it for me, and kind of being able to say, hey, how can I serve today? What can I do to give back? How can I make the world a better place? How can I, how
Right.
can I put my, I put my little things that you do, like putting my, going to the market. I do probably 90% of the marketing, but I always put my shopping cart back. Like, I don't leave it right there. I mean, just little things
Yeah. Yeah.
like that,
Mhm.
that you can do just to be mindful about things, letting people in if there's traffic, trying to do some of those types of things. So, um, I don't know. It's an ongoing,
Well,
it's a
I think
busy
I
world,
think
but
what you described something that's really important that I think people can take from your comments is when a lot of times people struggle is when they focus too much on themselves. They look at their life and maybe it's not going the way they want it to, or and they get in their own way. They can't get out of their way. And a lot of the work that I do helps people change that relationship so that they can focus on themselves and they can, shift gears. But when you move into service,
yeah.
your little problems tend to go away. They just because you don't have time for them. You don't have time for the little voice inside your head that's telling you, you're never going to make it, or you're never going to be enough, or you're a loser, or I don't, whatever the voice is, whatever that voice is happening. So I think it's really a brilliant strategy that you've either stumbled upon or you just have had for your life.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, very much. One of my dogs is pawing at the door, so I apologize. I don't know
I
what's
don't hear
going
it at
on. We
all.
have, yeah.
No, I don't. Do you need to go answer the door? Do you need to go?
Uh, Give me just 1 second.
Yeah.
Trying to go outside, 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 outside. Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
All right. No, no
Um,
worries. I have two dogs myself, so I'm
okay,
very, very used to that sort of interruption.
sorry.
Well, let me
Yes.
ask you. Let's move into today. Like, um, what do you feel like you're still figuring out today? Like, what are you still learning or trying to, understand? Maybe that you don't. That's not working, or I don't even know whether it's working or not working. What are you figuring out?
How to get my kids to disengage from technology.
Oh God, me. Well, my son just went off to college, so I can't do that anymore. But
I
yes,
know, I know. You
yes,
gave him wings to fly with. Um, yeah, I mean, shoot, buddy, there's all kinds of things. I mean, I haven't arrived. I mean, we're, you
yeah,
know, trying to, I think, set an example for your boys. I mean, your kids learn a lot more from what you do than what you say, right?
yeah,
So I think that's important to kind of acknowledge that and to remember that. But yeah, I mean, I think that, being selfless all the time isn't natural, right? I mean, you're thinking about
oh,
things, and
right,
I think that some of those types of things. So I think, trying to, just be, conscientiously being a better husband, being a better father, being consistent, and all those types of things. So,
yeah,
trying to figure it out. But I think it's just working on trying to be consistent, and trying to do that, on a daily and weekly basis. I think being less reactive. I mean, I think some of those kinds of things, um, because, as I shared before, and I'm sure you get pulled in a lot of directions.
yeah,
And so I think sometimes taking a beat before you respond, and
mhm,
just, doing that kind of thing can be really helpful. But I'm a work in progress, Andy. I'm
yeah.
doing the
Cool,
best I can.
cool. Do
Yeah.
you have a reading practice, or do you have a coach, or do you get you go for I don't know, do you take classes, or like how do you do it
Uh,
yourself?
well, I work out on the daily, like I told you, early riser, do that. So I have a pretty strict routine. I gave up alcohol about 4 years ago.
Wow.
So I don't drink.
Yep. That's not
And I
easy.
think that, and I don't judge people that do, right? I mean, I mean, I did it really more for health and longevity and knock on wood. I mean, some of those types of things. Um, but I think that, I think I do read. I read at least a book a month. I mean, that's kind of the plan that
Oh,
I'm
wow.
on. I'm a reader.
Do you
So,
do you read fiction? Do you read nonfiction? Do you read self-help books? Like what's
uh,
your what's your
I
what's your
read
choice?
a lot of different types of books. I mean, I get handed books sometimes. Like, I mean, so people know that I like to read, and so it could be different. It could be different things. It could be, there are some self help people that I like. I do like nonfiction.
Mhm.
Reading stuff, occasionally in my industry. There's entertainment people, biographies I like,
Yeah, right.
all those types of things, and then just great writers, right? I mean, reading
Yeah.
great novels and stories. So I think that's something that I do. What did you ask me exactly? I
Well,
mean,
just
so
yeah,
what
so
do
like I put learning and growing as one of the 6 fundamental human needs, right?
Yeah.
Always be
Yep.
growing. And so,
Yeah.
some people, life is growing you. You can't not be growing. I mean,
Yeah.
you can be resisting growing, and wanting everything to be the same, but life is growing you. But many people that are professionals that have achieved levels like you have in your life have practices around intentional growing.
Yeah.
So whether
Yeah.
that's reading books, or it's working with a advisor, a
Coach,
mentor, a
leadership
coach,
coach, or yeah,
or
yeah.
yeah, it's like that was my question really.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for bringing me back to it. Easy to kind of go down tangents sometimes. Well,
Yeah.
Tim O'Brien, is
Yeah.
our mutual friend. I meet with Tim on occasion. I'm part of the Rainmaker group
Yep.
that he has. That's obviously how we got connected. So, and I've got other friends that I'm close to that I think we all do. That sometimes, man, I really need to talk to that friend, like the energy pack or and you try to be, I think maybe sometimes that to your friends. I mean, part of having great friends is certainly being one, right? Like
Yeah.
what you get is, you give first to get. So anyway, I think from that standpoint, but yeah, reading some of the spiritual work, getting quiet, working out, consistently doing that. And then, just, I think just kind of being consistent and trying to do good things, trying to live, like trying to like be. It's not better that I heard it said before. We're not trying to be better than anybody else. We're just trying to be better than we used to be, right? And
Yeah,
just
yeah, right.
and just trying to trying
Well,
to
I know you have a background in stretching yourself. It was very clear that, when you was a sophomore year, that you showed up and became the fittest guy on the team. Do you still, I mean, I know you don't do that in the gym because that wouldn't really advance you in your life, because you don't need to be the fittest guy in your practice, or there's
yeah,
no
yeah.
relevance. But do you have an area that you like to really go for it and stretch it? Like, what's the area? Is it your business, or with your kids, or
It's a good question. I mean, I'm really working hard in my business. I mean, my kids are turning 15 and 14, so I think really trying to, I'm not coasting, right? So I think really working hard to, expand and to help more people and kind of do what I'm doing on the work front. I think trying to be a consistent father. I've got my older son that he was more my creative kid growing up, so I thought I was gonna have one creative kid and one sports kid, and now my older son, who's at Loyola, loves football, and so that kind of is a late entry to that. So I think supporting that and fostering it, and being a good listener, with
Mhm.
my kids, trying to kind of help them navigate some of those things, I think is part of it. And then, my wife is very successful. I mean, she has her MBA and went to law school and is obviously very educated and is a business owner as well. And so sometimes we're, like two ships passing in the night, right? Have a great relationship and a great friendship and a mutual respect. I think that's certainly what our marriage is built on. But I
Mhm.
think that, yeah, I mean, I just think that, it's a fast paced world, so I think trying to
Yeah.
do what we can do to, I think also being cognizant, Andy, that as you just are, as you're coming to terms with, your son is out of the house, right? And so he's gone off to school. I think one of the biggest charges we have as parents in life is to create kids that have wings to fly with, right?
Right.
And to,
Right.
get to be successful, to get out of the house and to go and do good things and to lead good, productive lives, doing that type of thing. So I think that's, that's still we're working on that, right? We've got ninth and eighth grade boys,
I
right?
I
So
I can I can tell you from experience that that was always my intention
sure,
around, raising my son, and
yeah,
now that he's gone, uh, I couldn't be prouder of what the way he's handling himself and the way he's moved away, and at the same time, there's a deep, like, missing, like, longing for the times that are no longer there, like, they're gone,
yeah, yeah,
and I think that is a beautiful. Well, I don't know. When I'm feeling it, it doesn't feel beautiful. It feels just very, like, heartbreaking. Like, oh my God, like it's all over. Like, where did it go?
yeah.
And
So
yet,
fast,
and
so
yet that's what
fast.
you want. You want your
Yeah,
kids to spread their wings and fly and go out
yeah,
and slay the world, you know?
absolutely.
So it's probably, I would say it's probably the hardest phase of parenthood that has been for me personally.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah,
Much harder than anything else I've done, because I had to run it. I had to go do it by myself. He's
yeah.
I'm not going to be, you know, breaking down with him on the phone. Like, it's,
Oh,
he's,
yeah.
I got
Oh,
to
yeah.
handle it. And
Yeah.
my wife's got to handle it, and we can do some of it together, but it's also our individually. So you've got that coming up. You won't have a cliff. We only had one kid, so
Yeah.
it kind of dropped off the edge of the cliff. You've got at
Yeah.
least a warm up round, you know?
I know. I know. Yeah, it's but I mean, you talked about how fast it goes, and I'm sure it's kind of bittersweet, right? I mean, you obviously know that
Totally.
that path is coming, and it's what we all want for our kids to go out and like you said, go out and slay it and do the things that they're going to do and be happy, healthy, well-adjusted, respectful, hardworking, all those things that you envision for your children. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I mean, that day's coming, but I'll tell you, they went from, turning, 15 and 14. I mean, they went from 4 and 5 to 10 years later in the blink of an
Yeah.
eye.
Like that.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and they're about
Well,
to pass
just
me up. My,
we
my
can.
younger one's 6'1", 175 is a 13 and a half year old. And my older one's about 6 foot 195, playing at Loyola. So
Yeah,
they're going
that's
to, they're going to pass down
they're
up
men.
here pretty soon.
They're men. Like, it's there's no question,
Well, hey, I told you I buy a lot of the groceries. I mean, they eat like men.
Yeah.
That's for
Yeah,
sure.
right. All right, well, just wrapping up,
Sure. Yeah.
somebody that's listening to this, they might either be struggling in their life, or they're looking to create a level of success similar to what you've created. What would you want them to take away from your journey? Like, what's something that you would tell someone that needs a boost or a prompt or a.
I think more than anything, it's just you're not alone. Be connected. Find
Mm,
ways to
mm,
connect and reach out to me if you don't have anybody. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all busy in our own worlds and our own lives, but I think that being in a situation, Andy, where you kind of know where to plug in and don't be alone. I mean, I think that again, I've lost a lot of my teammates. Um, and I think that we talk about it. I'm on a big text chain with maybe 20 guys that I played with from our time there, and you get g- people pass, right, and they pass
yeah.
prematurely and stuff like that. So it's like, hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Let's find time. Let's make time to get together. I think that there's a guy, Frank Capra, that made It's a Wonderful Life. A lot of your audience probably knows that, but he
Oh,
also
yeah.
made a movie before that called You Can't Take It With You. And
Oh,
made that like
no.
5 or 6 years before. And, I think that he's a guy that was a visionary, uh, doing these things, 80, 90 years ago. But he's right. I mean, we can't take any of this stuff with us. And so, I think that creating abundance in our lives, not just financial abundance, but I think that human capital and friendships and getting together and being able to plug in and, whether it's whatever you're passionate about, but whether it's, an alumni going back to their university, whether it's plugging into a church group or prayer group, yoga, going doing yoga,
Or your
whatever
neighbor,
it is. But
like heaven forbid you reach out and are in community with your neighbors. That's another
absolutely,
source. We've got an issue going on in our neighborhood now that's actually bringing our neighborhood together. We have a house that's been vacant, and some
yeah.
squatters moved in.
Oh
It's
wow,
been vacant.
wow,
It's been vacant for a year, and I've kind of taken the reins of reaching out to the owners who live a long way away.
yeah,
And you know, I'm now connected with like 5 different people that I didn't know their tech. I didn't know their name. I didn't know their names. I didn't
wow,
know their texts. I didn't have their, and we are now connected in a way. So yes, there's some adversity. We don't want a squatter in our neighborhood, but
sure,
the bigger, like I would say, even maybe win is,
yeah,
gosh, I know the names. I know the first names of all my neighbors now. It's really kind of cool.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's a lost art, right? I mean, there was
Yeah.
I think there was a book that came out a long, long time ago, but it was a little coffee table book called Life's a Little Instruction Book. And one of the things in
Yeah.
it, I was a little kid when it came out, but I remember one of the things that it said in there, it just had all kinds of axioms, like little axioms to live by.
Yeah.
But one of them was like, hey, when you have a new neighbor or a neighbor that's in your area, take them homemade cookies, like go knock on their
Right.
door,
Right.
be a good neighbor. Right. And I
Maybe
think,
not, the squatters, but anyone else.
yeah, they'll never leave, I know.
Yeah. Or you
Yeah.
can bribe the squatters. Hey, if you come out and get the cookies.
Yeah. Yeah. Come
Yeah,
outside.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. But,
Well,
yeah,
Shane, thank you so much for spending the time, for doing it a second time, given the internet
absolutely.
problems we had the
Oh,
first
I'm
time.
glad we got this one right with no glitches. Sorry about
Yeah.
the previous deal,
I
but
really
hopefully,
appreciate you being here. What is how, if somebody hears this and wants to reach out to you for any reason, how would they find you?
well, I mean, my office is in Pasadena. My company's Capstone Partners.
Is it capstonepartners.com? Is that your website?
Well, shanefoley.com is, I do have shanefoley.com. Actually, my website is kind of getting rebuilt right now, but, my email is, my business email is Shane Foley, Shane Foley at financialguide.com. And so they can kind of reach out to me from that standpoint, or shanefoley.com will be probably up and running. We'll post this to that website probably here in the next 2 weeks. So that's something that we could do. So, yeah, thanks for having me on, and wishing everybody out there all the best and in your lives, and wish you all the best in your futures, and have a great one.
Thanks, Shane. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.